All right, hello everybody. My name is Abbruzzese. It looks like I'm kicking off the consumer track this year. So I'm a principal analyst for ABI Research. We're a market research company. Since I started, we've been diving really deep into the augmented and virtual reality markets. This is my third AWE, speaking here twice now. And it's a really great event to really get a pulse of what the market's doing. So what we've been doing at ABI, at least what I've been doing recently, is trying to get our voice out there into how we're segmenting the market, AR and VR. You look at all these definitions that are out there, and it can differ from company to company, from person to person. So what I'm presenting today, if the clicker works, there we go, is how ABI Research segments the reality spectrum. This isn't the de facto way of looking at the market, but this is how we at ABI segment it. This is how we approach our research from a devices standpoint, from a use cases standpoint, and from a content standpoint. So on the left you have reality, that's just not using a device, pretty self-explanatory. One step over, we say, is augmented reality. That's Google Glass as an example. That's Vuzix as an example. It's passive content. It could be a single screen, it could be two screens, but it's passive, and it's floating in front of you. Next over, we say, is mixed reality. That's HoloLens as an example. What that adds is interactivity to your content. In the case of HoloLens, it can geo-register, so it could put content on a table or on a wall. Having some sort of machine vision to be able to make your content interactive and available in your space is mixed reality. Merged reality is an interesting one. I think, in this crowd, most are comfortable with AR and VR and mixed reality kind of on its own. Merged reality is this new space. Look to Intel Project Alloy as an example of this. What merged reality is a virtual reality headset with machine vision added. So the way I differentiate at a high level is put the device on and keep it off. So turn the device off. If you can see, it's mixed reality. If you can't, it's merged reality. Because you have a VR headset, it needs to be on to be able to pull the world in through your vision. Mixed reality, you have see-through displays, you don't need that. And merged reality has the same geo-registration, pulls that data in from the real world, and does a similar thing that mixed reality does, just with a VR headset. And then VR, I think, is a pretty comfortable definition. A regular virtual reality headset. Look at HTC Vive, PSVR, Gear VR, all of those. There we go. So one thing that's happening that's pretty interesting and unique for a new technology is there's kind of simultaneous generations happening. Usually you'll see a new piece of technology come around and it'll be in a prototype, an early stage for generation 1.0. 2.0 will come around a few years later and improve, and 3.0 will come around after that. But if you look at the augmented reality space as a whole, including both AR and mixed reality, you have these simultaneous generations, at least in terms of capability. So 1.0, you can say, is mobile AR. You just need a smartphone or a tablet, and it uses the camera pass-through. That's it. Pretty simple, pretty easy to implement. It's already here. 2.0, you look at Google Glass, you look at Vuzix, that passive AR content, that's already here. 3.0, you look to HoloLens, you look to DAQRI, that interactive, richly visualized content. These all exist already. They're all playing, sometimes competing, most of the time cooperating. They serve different markets, they serve different verticals, and they serve different price points. So it's a really interesting thing to see where all of these are going to grow in their own way while coexisting. So when you're looking at hardware, we can specify smart glasses for this instance. There's a lot of considerations you have to make if you're purchasing or you're looking into the market. And I think a lot of these are pretty self-explanatory and familiar. But price obviously is first and foremost a concern. You're looking at pretty expensive devices, even at the low end, that really starts to shut out the consumer market. Right now you're starting to see some pushes for consumer augmented reality glasses, but really they're not hitting the price point that they need to get consumer adoption. So price is first and foremost. Then you're looking at physical capability of the devices. How adaptable are they? How many use cases can they serve? Are they 2D or 3D, monocular or binocular? What type of content are you looking to consume on them? These are all considerations that different devices serve in different ways. And when you're speaking of processing, you're looking at a number of different components on the hardware side that vary in terms of maturity. So really quickly on this slide, I would highlight input as a component of these devices that's already relatively mature, especially when you compare it to other pieces of the puzzle like price, display, processing, field of view. These can all be improved and might even need to be improved. It might be a necessity to improve them before they see any mass adoption. But input, we have voice input that's relatively mature. We have gesture input that's mature. We have gaze tracking that's starting to come into play. And we have general touch input, whether it's a controller or a touchpad or something like that, that's very mature. So input was this piece of the puzzle that everyone said is a necessity to figure out. And we see it already being mature enough to allow the rest of the market to proceed forward. So part of ABI Research, obviously, we're pretty heavily data-oriented. So this is just a high-level overview of our smart glasses shipments forecasts, split between binocular and monocular. So the interesting trend I would highlight is monocular was growing very quickly in the early parts of our forecast. That's due to enterprise activity and interest driving that market forward. And we're seeing binocular start to grow and eventually overtake monocular in the forecast at the end. 2021, you're looking at 52-48, within margin of error 50-50, split between monocular and binocular. And a big part of that is we're seeing mixed reality start to grow. We're starting to see the consumer market come into play later into that forecast. And with consumers gravitating more towards binocular devices due to immediate entertainment focus. So I've talked about smart glasses a lot, but mobile is something I only hinted at a little bit. Mobile is incredibly compelling, especially from a consumer standpoint, because you have billions of devices out there that are capable of having some sort of augmented reality experience. You start looking into the future, you see Google Tango, Intel RealSense. These machine vision sensors start being added to smartphones. Initially pretty low volumes. As more and more OEMs start to get involved, you start to see these flagships with AR sensor capabilities on them, and you start to see the market take off. You see a quick high-level number, under 400 million embedded vision mobile devices were predicted by 2021. And embedded vision meaning dedicated sensors or a dedicated vision processing unit outside of just the regular RGB camera. So when I say mobile, you have to think about Facebook, especially recently with their F8 conference. They made such a huge push on mobile and mobile AR. So initially, Facebook is looking at it from a mobile point of view with simple filters and some social elements, but they've expressed interest in what's past mobile. So one consideration that's been really prominent in the AR market with consumer and enterprise is where's the content going to be? So on the VR side, we saw some early interest from big content guys. You saw YouTube get involved early. You saw Facebook get involved early. We hadn't seen that on the AR side, but we're beginning to see that now. And that's a huge component to see our forecasts, which are pretty exponential starting in 2018 and 2019. That's a big component of it. The big content guys getting on board, pushing content for consumer, and also spilling over from enterprise into enterprise. So I wanted to leave a little time for questions because I think this is a really difficult market to understand, especially if you're new. But so if you guys have any questions, let me know. You can see some of our related research that is already completed and upcoming research. We have databases that dive into this really heavily. We have an update to that coming soon. We're looking at display technology. We have a lot of interest in light field. What does light field look like for AR and VR? There's a lot of considerations for motion sickness on the VR side, and just for general, if you wear glasses, what do? Light field might be able to solve that. So we're looking into light field and other display tech. Content, I mentioned, what does content creation look like, consumer and enterprise? What are the SDKs involved? Who's playing there? And what does the content look like now? And what does it look like going forward? And sensors is another one. I mentioned embedded vision in mobile. So we're going to be looking further into what the forecast looks like for embedded vision. What are the considerations in terms of form factor for embedding this? We see a couple phones that have embedded Google Tango, but what does it look like in terms of decreased battery? Or what does the PCB look like in the phone? What are the considerations that an OEM has to make to implement this, and why would they or why wouldn't they implement it? So that's just a quick highlight of what we're looking into. But that is the reality spectrum as we see it. Those are the use cases we're looking at. That's what we're targeting. and I'll open it up for any questions if you have them. No? All right. Otherwise, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be here at the show, happy to answer any questions, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this market progresses. Thank you.